right, quick question for the audience. How many of you have ever lived alone at some point?
Not that many.
According to Statistics Canada, more and more Canadians are living on their own. In fact, in 2021, 29% of Canadians reported living in one-person households. That percentage is actually expected to grow as our population ages.
But how the heck are you going to afford that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Life on your own can be really expensive. So here with some tips on how to budget as a solo earner is financial journalist Renée Sylvestre-Williams. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me. So, Renée, I think right out of the gate, people can think of a million reasons and ways that it is more challenging if you are living on your own, especially given how expensive life is these days. But you said there is actually a positive side to consider as well. And what is that exactly?
One, it's your money. You get to make all the decisions. You get to make all the plans. You can entertain opinions if you want, but fundamentally, it's your plan and your money.
Aha.
Your decisions.
Okay. I like this. It's one of my things I look back on, and I wish I'd spent time living alone, because for all the reasons you just said. Now, listen, the biggest expense for people is housing. And I mean, I can imagine how hard it is to find a place to live if you're living off one salary. How can solo earners best handle this expense?
Yeah, housing is one of those things that's kind of a set rate, whether you live by yourself or you live with somebody. So a couple options, the roommate option, but if you don't want to live by yourself, you may have to move to a slightly cheaper area. Other things you can look at is probably look at co-ops, which is great because you're owner, so you don't get like the surprise rent increases, and you get to see the financial statements, right?
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Now, there is a waiting list, but I think it's a very solid option.
Okay.
Okay, so there's housing costs, but then there is food costs.
Yes.
And my gosh, it feels so expensive to eat these days. So when it comes to eating and purchasing food, shopping as a solo earner, where do we land on that? How can someone make their money go further?
Okay, first, buy what you eat. So you're not wasting food, right? You'll eat everything. Okay. Now, bulk buying is an option, but sometimes when you buy you bulk buy perishable items, you have nowhere to put them and they spoil before you use them. Especially if you don't have room for a deep freezer in your house, am I right? What you can do is bulk buy dry goods. Like, I'm pretty sure I've got soap and possibly a bottle of shampoo under my bed, because you can store those.
Right.
What you can also do is kind of like group buy with friends. Right? So you can, I have a couple friends that I do like errand dates with, and we always end up in a grocery store, and we will buy something and split it between us, especially perishables.
That's
really great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Also, if you lived in an apartment or a condo, like getting to know people on your floor and splitting costs like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't have room for a deep freezer in my condo, trust me. I don't want it in my living room.
Yeah. Okay, so even if it's a ways off, retirement is something that also is on a lot of people's minds. Do you have any tips for retirement planning as a solo earner?
Okay, blanket statement, always try and work with an advisor and a planner, because they've got that distance from your money. We all have a lot of emotions about our money, and they will often have that distance that they can help you. The second thing is you could consider a side hustle, but one thing I do want to kind of caution is get a side hustle that doesn't burn you out, because it's still work, right? You're still working, right? So kind of balance off that. I had a couple friends who drove for a couple hours a week or did delivery, and it worked out for them. They got some money on the side. They weren't too burnt out. They were using their cars anyway. So it's a bit of a push and pull, but I will say, try and sit down and figure out where you want to be when you retire. Are you going to quit work entirely? Are you going to maybe pivot to something else? Figure that out, and then once you kind of know that, you can plan.
Okay, kind of related to retirement, but like savings. And so, if you're a solo earner and you're trying to stretch every dollar as it is, that pressure to save when you've got already so many expenses. I mean, what's your advice for someone who's like, I'd want to try to tuck away something? Pretty much.
I think it really, really goes back and just to kind of really get granular with your budget, because there's options. You either make more money, or you have to cut back, or you do a side hustle. It's not the greatest, but it's kind of like, where can you cut where you don't feel deprived? Because austerity budgets don't work. People fall off of that, and the next thing you know, you're buying something that you absolutely don't need, but you've just done it, right? So I think it's also treating yourself gently and not judging yourself. Everybody's really trying to do their best.
Okay, so travel, of course, we know can be so much more expensive on your own. We've all heard about the single tax. Do you have any suggestions in ways to make it more affordable?
Yeah, absolutely. One, travel off season. Absolutely. Summertime, very expensive, especially since the world's opened back up. Yeah. What I would also do is if you're booking a hotel room, and hotels sell their rooms as rooms, right? Call them directly and say, hey, I'm traveling by myself, and see if you get a discount. Some hotel rooms and resorts actually have rooms and events that cater for solo travelers. They're smaller. A few years ago, I stayed at a hotel in New York, and they had a single room. It was great. The sink was in the room itself, but the bed was big, the bathroom was great. And I stayed in a resort with a friend a few years ago. There's 3 of us. One of them stayed in a single room, and they had events where solo people can like meet each other.
Nice bonus.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can stay on the beach by yourself, or you can hang out.
Okay, so you kind of alluded to my last question, which is the social side of being a solo earner. So there's events, like there are weddings and birthdays, and there's vacations.
Yes.
Everything you're spending out of pocket for. You got to get the new outfit for the wedding. I mean, all of these things. So if you've got one salary, how are you going to stretch yourself across all of these social events as well?
Well, first, maybe consider renting an outfit or borrowing from a friend. So that's the first thing. Second, you don't have to go to every single event, especially if you're not close to that person.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, you have a cutoff.
You have a cutoff. And I will say, give what you can afford, all right? I know you love your friends, but it is your budget and it's not your day. Give what you can afford. And if they pressure you, I don't know, maybe kind of rethink the intensity of that friendship.
Fair enough.
Renee, great stuff for everybody to think about for sure. Thank you so much for all of your great advice.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.